We will do these next three as we continue through our Chapter 2 test review. Write a polynomial function of least degree with integral coefficients that has the given zeros. So what we do here is we want these to be the zeros. Well, we learned if something has a zero, then a factor has to be in the form x minus that number. So write a polynomial, we'll name it p of x. And 5 is a 0 with multiplicity 3. That simply means that it's going to be a factor. This is x minus, oops, I wrote that wrong. X minus 5 will be a factor 3 times, which obviously we could write that as x minus 5 cubed. Now this says you do not have to carry out the multiplication. You could if you wanted to. I'll just show you one of them just so you remember this. We don't multiply this times the second one and the third one. We multiply the first and second. So x squared minus 5x minus another 5x plus 25 FOILed again. And we would multiply that by x minus 5. X squared minus 10x plus 25. And now what we do is we can't use FOIL because this is 3 terms, but we can distribute each of these. So x squared times x, this is going to get messy, is x cubed. X squared times negative 5 is minus 5x squared. Let's pick a different color for our next little thing here. Let's go green. Now we do negative 10x times x. You can barely see that, but negative 10x squared. And then negative 10x times negative 5 is plus 50x. And we'll choose a better color here. Let's go with a beautiful brown color. Now we can do 25 times x, so plus 25x, and then 25 times negative 5 is negative 125. And so by adding like terms, we would get x cubed minus 15x squared plus 75x minus 125. All right, next one. So for this, our polynomial, we would have x minus 4. But we have an irrational number here, and we learned that if an irrational number is a 0 of a function, then so is its conjugate. So we're going to go ahead and write that 3 minus root 7 will also be a factor. You've got to be careful when you write these. So we want to do x minus, and we're going to put in parentheses because the negative needs to be distributed, so x minus this number, and then our next factor would be x minus 3 minus root 7. So this should be cleaned up a little bit. Again, in all caps, you do not need to carry out the multiplication. You most certainly could if you wanted to, but you don't need to. So this would be x minus 3 minus root 7. And this would be x minus 3 plus root 7 because we distributed those negatives. And when you multiply these, I actually would multiply the last two first, like distributing the x to everything, then distributing the negative 3 to all 3 terms, and then distributing the root 7. Get that answer and multiply it by here. But you don't need to carry that out. The next one, a polynomial function with rational coefficients has the following zeros. Find all additional zeros. Well, I mentioned up here, if a irrational number is a 0, so is its conjugate. That's true down here, and it's also true with imaginary numbers. So if negative I is a root, then so is positive I. And interestingly enough, this is the exact same thing as up here. So if 3 plus root 7 is a root, so is 3 minus root 7. It just asked us to list all additional zeros. Those are the only ones that have to be zeros because of this imaginary number and this irrational number being zeros.